Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. Oh, we've got a lot to get to with Trump's appearance before the National Association of Black Journalists yesterday. Looking forward to that discussion with Charlie Kirk in 1 minute. But we begin with the insanity on display at the Olympic Games. With the whole world watching, we have just witnessed a biological woman, also known as just a woman, in a fight with a boxer who was not allowed to compete against women last year because it's a man. The person's splitting hairs. Everyone's splitting hairs around this person, saying, well, he has XY chromosomes, but I guess we can't call him a man because he calls himself a woman. I don't give a shit. You have XY chromosomes, you're a man. For athletic purposes and other purposes. And this person was banned from competing in international tournaments last year, and yet was allowed to enter the Olympics so he could pummel female boxers. They failed the gender eligibility test. I mean, that's what they're saying. You know why? Because it's a man. The outcome was beyond predictable for anyone with common sense. It took 46 seconds for the woman, his opponent from Italy, to withdraw from the fight in tears. The man is Algeria's Megyn Kelly. He repeatedly pummeled her in the face. Look at this below. Look at that, walloped her. This is what female athletes are up against when the powers that be will not protect them. Megan Rapinoe says it's not happening. She says they're fine. Why don't you tell it to Italian boxer Angela Carini, literally brought to her knees and to tears? F you, Megan Rapinoe. You left the sport. You don't have to deal with this. Your kid, she doesn't have one, is not going to have to deal with this nonsense. Mine is, the listeners of this show have children who are going to have to deal with this. This poor boxer retreated to the corner, yelling, "This is unjust," as her Olympic dream came crashing down thanks to a weak-kneed International Olympic Committee that allowed this to happen. Listen to how the IOC explained its decision just a few days ago.
They are women in their passports, and it's stated that is the case, that they are female. They're competing in the women's category. Again, I don't want to mention their names or whatever, but these athletes have competed many times before for many years.
And were also banned, which you now refuse to acknowledge as you let them play in the Olympics. It remains to be seen how NBC News, the broadcast network of the games here in America, will cover this here at home, since they are as woke and pro-trans, quote, rights as humanly possible. Does anyone remember the women? Anyone at all? Joining me now, Charlie Kirk, founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and host of The Charlie Kirk Show. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. You know how much my family and I love our dogs, even my sweet Strudwick. Can't imagine life without them, though sometimes I do in Strudwick's case. But then I remember I love him, and he's just a big cuddle bug, even though he destroys a lot. My dogs have a great life, and they're fortunate, and we're fortunate. Some dogs are not so lucky. And that's why I am so glad, I'm honored to tell you about Delta Rescue, the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, cats, and horses too. They provide all the animals with shelter and safety, and most of all, love, a home. And they've been doing it now for more than 45 years. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions to stay open, and giving can bring tax benefits to you. Talk to your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping these animals in need. And check out the estate planning tab on their website if you want to learn more. We love our Thunder and Strud. Delta Rescue helps the pups who need love but don't have it. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. This is such an outrage.
It's a total injustice. I was just reading a USA Today piece right when I was preparing for this. And in the USA Today piece, it's very confusing if you don't actually know the story. It says, woman from Algeria wins decisive bout with woman from Italy. They refuse to even now say transgender woman, which is a fake term. But they don't even say transgender woman anymore. They just say woman. The New York Times has a title. They say, at the center of the chromosome dispute. That's what they now call it. The chromosome dispute. What they're trying to do is confuse readers so that people don't get animated and get upset about this. And people say, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm just going to move on to the next story. Or there must be more to this. Or maybe it was somebody that is intersex or has some sort of an extra chromosome, or I don't know. Instead, this is a biological man from Algeria, which is, it's an interesting part of the story because that is a Muslim country, and why they're also supporting this is kind of bizarre and strange, but that's a side issue at the IOC. But we should expect this. This is the next logical step of America's influence in the world. We are the leaders of the world. We have workshopped trans ideology and men and female sports. And it started here, and now it's in the Olympic boxing and the Olympic platform.
These radical trans activists and those who support them are not going to be happy until a woman is dead. That's what it's going to take. A woman is going to have to die for people to see reason and logic here.
I don't think that would stop it.
Oh, we're inching closer and closer, right? We have a young girl with permanent nerve damage in North Carolina. We have a girl missing all of her teeth now thanks to field hockey in the United States. We've got this woman pummeled to the face. And this is a boxer. This is not a weak woman. The Italian who was boxing against this Algerian man. She's taken a beating before from other women. She doesn't complain. She said she got in there and within 46 seconds she knew, and I'll just read what she said. She wrote, "I got into the ring to fight, but I didn't feel like it anymore after the first minute. I started to feel a strong pain in my nose. I didn't give up, but a punch hurt too much. And so I said, enough. I'm leaving with my head held high. I'm used to suffering. I've never taken a punch like that. It's impossible to continue." And then she said, "Who am I to say it's illegal?" She realizes she doesn't set the rules. These poor women are being fed like lambs to the slaughter in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm not Italian, so I'm not going to criticize her. She is weak. Why won't you stand up and say, I'm fighting a man? Because she's part of the entire European trans project. Again, this is going to require athletes. And remember, about a month and a half ago, the now repeated gold medalist, incredibly impressive athlete, 1,500 meter gold medalist, Katie Ledecky, was asked about men and female sports, and she just dodged the question. It's like, oh, I'm not really sure about that. Again, female athletes are not standing up for this. They're largely okay with this, and or they are not okay with it, but they're too afraid or weak to speak out about it. Men are not going to fix this. You've seen that. I mean, how many times are now men speaking out about this? I speak out about this. Donald Trump speaks out about this. Instead, it needs to be a female-led athlete movement. But that woman who got pummeled in the face, she's upset, she's crying, but then she plays into the injustice. Oh, well, who am I to say that it's wrong? Well, you actually are here to say you could change this. You could now make this your number one issue and say, I just had to fight a man. I'm a tough boxer, and I just got almost knocked out in the first minute because I was fighting somebody unlike a physical specimen I've never seen before. But Megyn, this is only going to continue. It will likely result in permanent damage of women, which the trans movement, by the way, specializes in. The trans movement specializes in permanent physical damage of females, as we know, with gender medical mutilation in our country. But yes, this is America's influence on the world. America will influence the rest of the Western world, and we have decided to make this the standard operating procedure. Of course, we saw what happened with Thomas, the swimmer from the University of Pennsylvania. We did nothing. We allowed Thomas to keep all those awards. Why should we be shocked that the IOC embraces the same idea toxins that we, the United States of America, workshop and implement?
Yes. And a word on what you said about the media and the way they're reporting this. I love the Daily Mail. They speak reason. They write reason. However, they and the New York Post, I feel the same about them, are still using she, her pronouns for men competing in sport. Why? Out of a concern for sensitivity or because it's policy. I beg you to stop doing that. I beg you. Not only is it bizarrely confusing to read the articles. Look at this. This is a man. This is a man who is competing in the boxing tournament for women. This is the guy who punched her so badly in the face she had to leave. Who would want to do this? What kind of a man gets off on punching women in the face?
And again, it is up for a society to prevent the abuse of women, but we don't do that anymore, and we haven't for quite some time. And understand, this is the outgrowth of third wave feminism, because third wave feminism says women don't need to be protected. Women don't need the door to be held open for them. Women don't need a man to protect them. Okay, you don't? Then go box a bunch of men. Read the literature of third wave feminism. No, the third wave feminism says that women do not need, that we are equal to men.
They're captured. Like all these news organizations, and Fox News is there too, are captured by this need to use the proper language. And I've mentioned this article many times, but it's called Pronouns Are Rohypnol. And they are Rohypnol. It was banned on the internet for a long time. Then it finally got published at Medium. And it goes through the fact that it's meant to dull your senses. It's meant to get rid of like the forced attempt to make you say she, her when it's a man, is meant to get you used to looking at a man like we just saw and be like, yeah, she, her, that works. That's okay. That's a thing for a guy with a penis, for a guy with XY, no problem. And it's dangerous because then you get to the point where you're like, sure, how can I say she can't box with the women? How do I say her presence there is inappropriate? Especially when you're reporting on a controversy like this, I am begging even the woke publications to use the proper biological pronouns. That is the least they owe us as actual women. This woman who took the beating, Angela Carini, she's a cop in Italy, Charlie. She's not some weak, forgive me, my good friend's a needle pointer. She's not a needle pointer. She's a cop.
About it.
She will. I guarantee you she'll get there.
She's co-signing alongside of this.
She's got to be getting it. Her coach came out and said the following. He said, I think it's a male. I don't know if her nose is broken. I have to speak with her. But many people in Italy tried to call and tell her, don't go, please. It's a man. It's dangerous for you. But she, like a lot of women, Charlie, a lot of women came out and said, I really believe in respect for your opponent. You can't be abusive like any sport. It has to be a vehicle for, I can remember. I can't understand the translation here, but basically she says respect for your opponent. I think this girl, much like Paula Scanlon, one of the swimmers who went up against Leah Thomas, might be staying silent in the moment, but this point has got to be a before and after moment for her.
Yeah. And one point about the news organizations, you might be able to get away with it, Megyn, but this conversation right here is banned from YouTube. If I were to post what we just said here on YouTube, I lost my YouTube for a year and a half over this very conversation. All monetization, we got strikes. So you might be able to get away with it, but Charlie Kirk is some sort of awful person. But this is one of the reasons why the news organizations do this, is the tech companies say we will not put your articles in search engine optimization if you misgender because it's bullying and harassment. I would not be able to do this segment on TikTok because it's bullying and harassment. So the trans zealots, they have captured the tech companies and they work at these tech companies and they then are able to have a downstream tributary effect of the monopolization of thought control through all these other news organizations. So New York Post to the Washington Post, New York Times, if they misgender, they will not be able to get their article pushed through Apple News. They will not be able to get their article pushed through Google, pushed through Yahoo, pushed through Facebook. And so it's not even a journalist thing. It's a monetization thing from editors where they say, oh, just call the man a woman. It's fine. I know you don't agree with it. And look, they worship money far more than they care about the well-being of women. And that's been the case for quite some time. But I just want your audience to understand that there is a serious monetary implication here where I am not allowed to cover this story on YouTube today. So it's just going to be completely silent. My YouTube will not be able to talk about this because anything in the trans topic, I immediately get a strike. I lose access to our YouTube, which is a big part of obviously our podcast business and all that stuff. That is the power of the trans zealots over our society.
I'm begging them to stop this. A woman is going to die. A girl is going to be killed. We have to stop this insanity. Even if you're in favor of allowing biological males to compete against girls posing as women or girls, you must allow us to say they are men. You must allow the platforming of he, him, instead of she, her in the context of this discussion. When somebody dies, these publications will have blood on their hands for continuing the madness, the lie, this subterfuge. These are not women. That is exactly the problem. And now here in this, in the Daily Mail article about this, which is a good one, and I recommend people read it, they've gotten a lot of reaction saying bosses at the IOC are now facing a furious backlash following the fight. Former Prime Minister of the UK, Liz Truss, came out and said, when will the madness stop? Men cannot become women. Why is the British government not objecting to this? Then you've got British Olympian hero Sharon Davies saying today, this is shocking. The IOC are a bloody disgrace, in effect legalizing beating up females. This must stop. What the hell's the matter with them? You've got Barry McGugan, who is a former world featherweight world champion, says he's now president of the Professional Boxing Association, saying this is shocking and a pathetic decision to allow a man to fight a woman. And then you've got yet another man, Lin Yuting of Taiwan, also, just like this guy from Algeria, disqualified from world championships just last year, playing in this Olympics. So we got a guy from Taiwan and this Algerian continuing to play. No one's even talking right now about eliminating them. They held up the Algerians' hand in victory, Charlie. They wanted us to celebrate it.
Correct.
People in the auditorium were booing.
Yeah, and look, Kamala Harris should be asked about this, by the way. She's all about women's rights and all of her ridiculous advertisements that they're running. And it's not insignificant. If Kamala Harris or Joe Biden called the IOC a week ago, they could have gotten this rule changed. America calls all the shots. You know that. America's hosting the next Olympics, by the way, in Los Angeles. America is the biggest funder of this. America controls NATO. The Olympics are in Paris. We've been funding this ridiculous Ukrainian war effort. The Harris-Biden regime, they could have put an end to this. But they chose not to because they are captured. They are captured by a group of people that could not care less about the safety or the well-being of women. They are captured by all the extensions of this trans movement. And again, Megan Rapinoe says, well, it's not happening. But if it's happening, it's good that it is. And this is, you said it perfectly, Megan, this is soft but subtle mind control. They do not want you to speak out against this. They want you to go into a place where you are scared and you are afraid. And amazingly, if we had an honest media, this would be a political liability for Kamala Harris. She says she's enjoying all this new female support across the country where women themselves are being beat up and targeted and are being abused by biological men under the very movement that is being pushed by the Western left. But yes, Kamala Harris should have to answer this. She won't. She doesn't take questions anymore. She's doing a Joe Biden type strategy, do a rally, go home. But this is a major issue. And to President Donald Trump's great credit, it is a repeated platform issue of the Republican Party. He mentions it at almost every single rally that men will not play in female sports, period. I would not be shocked if Donald Trump speaks out about this. He might have already spoken out about this. And this is a fundamental issue of justice, well-being, and protecting individuals.
Every reporter needs to ask Kamala Harris where she stands on this. She won't make it clear. She's on record as supporting these so-called trans rights. We have a soundbite here of her bragging about how she got a prisoner, a sex change operation on the taxpayer's dime. So she wants the poor people in California to pay for this guy to have his penis chopped off. Listen to this.
When I was Attorney General, I learned that the California Department of Corrections, which was a client of mine, I didn't get to choose my client, that they were standing in the way of surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. And there was a specific case. And when I learned about the case, I worked behind the scenes to not only make sure that that transgender woman got the services she was deserving. So it wasn't only about that case. I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care that they desired and need. And I believe it was not only, I know it was historic in California, but I believe actually it may have been one of the first, if not the first in the country, where I pushed for that policy.
Yay. Good for you. And Charlie, we're having this conversation on August 1st. On August 1st. And you know what happens today? It's the implementation of their absolutely absurd Title IX revisions, where they erased protections for women. Right now, kids are getting ready to go back to school. And in the vast majority of states, 21 have challenged the changes legally. The rest have not. They're more blue states or purple states. Right now, your little girl's going to go to school in the vast majority of America, and she will be forced to compete against boys just like this Olympic athlete was. She will be forced to share her bathroom and her locker room with biological boys, some of whom will have autogynephilia, where it is more about getting off sexually than it has to do with gender confusion. And that is 100% because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
That's right. And so there are real world implications and policies at play here. And you've done a phenomenal job of covering the Title IX issue. The media has completely and totally ignored it. I think this is a perfect attack vector, especially if we're looking to win Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. In those states in particular, it's not popular to say that your high school daughter has to shower next to a dude under the idea of trans equality. But let me just kind of go back to that Kamala Harris clip. First of all, God forbid she becomes president. We need to do everything we possibly can. She will destroy this country, and she's already destroying the country as vice president. But how she is just disgustingly pandering to the trans agenda there, to a guy who's obviously a man with his very deep voice, trying to win over the trans agenda. Oh, yes, as Attorney General, I made sure that biological men could go into prisons. And just so you know, because of her policy, women are getting raped regularly in female prisons in California. We just had a guest on our podcast where she went, Amy Akachawa, very, very impressive young woman from Independent Women's Forum. And she was talking about, oh, yes, when I was a prisoner there were trans inmates, or just let's call them men. Yeah, she's terrific. And the details and the horror and the graphic nature of this. But I just want everybody to understand this as a repeated theme. The left has never cared about women. They do not care about women. The left only cares about power, and they care about the incineration of Western civilization. They are cheering what is happening right now in Paris because it is the obliteration of the norms and the customs and the traditions of Western society. For them, this is a step forward. This is what progress looks like. Progress is the unfolding of Western society and Western civilization. This is going to be largely memory hold by the media. They know that in a political election year, this story in Paris is bad for them. But I don't think it's going away, right, Megyn? This was not the gold medal match. This man is going to keep on marching through. There are more men that are going to keep on competing. And it's incumbent on us now, as we are in this hot political season, to shine a light and to make this a primary issue of how women in America and women of the Western world, they are unprotected thanks to the policies of the left, the lack of Title IX now, because the entire kind of sports tradition that we have in this country is over. There's no more female sports. There's just men's sports and other sports. And it's remarkable to me how many suburban women, moms, continue to vote for the Democrat Party. You'll have to explain that one for me, Megyn. But I guess they're upset that Donald Trump's tone is off.
They need to pay attention.
But they're okay
no one's
with
talking about it.
But I keep on hearing that. But yes and no. It's been many years, though. I mean, you confront them and they're like, well, I guess it needs some examination. They are putting their young daughters and their family members up for potential rape, sexual harassment, sexual assault, or as you aptly put it, death as a female athlete against men.
It is just a matter of time. Kamala Harris, she is as pro-trans rights as they come. She is not a champion for women. She is a champion for men posing as women. She not only had this Jonathan Ness to the White House recently in a dress with a beard. We have this, watch. Look at this. This is the party calling J.D. Vance weird. Yep.
Hi. Can we talk? Come on in. You're on the Edmund Pettus Bridge down.
Oh, wow. Honey, Madam Vice President. Yes.
Okay, he's got a beard, a mustache, and he's wearing a dress. She appeared on RuPaul's Drag Race to promote her candidacy a week ago. This is the same show that recently paraded a trans person down the runway holding her fake severed breasts, which were bloody, on the runway, and had fake arms around her with scalpels cutting off breast tissue with blood dripping down her chest. This is something, look at this. This is the show Kamala Harris, this is one of the first things she did. She went on this show to announce her candidacy and ask for donations and support. Not only that, but she wrote a letter to Dylan Mulvaney, who is one of the most offensive trans people to women, because all he does is mock us with his little girl outfits. He's a grown man. Last year, she sent him a letter saying, "Dear Dylan, I send you my warmest greetings as you celebrate your 365th day of living authentically. Thank you for courageously sharing your journey and your story. I appreciate your continued advocacy for transgender equality, including during your visit to the White House last year. Through your work as an activist and advocate for the LGBTQ plus community, you continue to break barriers and inspire young people around the nation and the world." There is no question where this woman stands, and it is not with our fellow women. But Charlie, what we're going to get instead is Trump said controversial things in front of the National Association of Black Journalists. He said things that the Twittering class found upsetting. Is anybody upset about that a woman almost got beaten to a pulp by a man on stage for entertainment at the Olympics? Did those people care?
No, and that's just one example of thousands that we could find. And again, this is what they consider to be progress. I know you'll agree with this, Megyn, but the society has become way too feminine in the sense where no one is willing to draw a line. No one is willing to say no. It is hyper feelings. And again, the balance between the masculine and the feminine in society is what keeps things in stability and order. We need both. And we see the relentless attack on President Trump and J.D. Vance. And Kamala Harris is going to try to run a campaign of, well, we have feelings and we have emotion and love is love and we're open for everybody. I sure hope that this country gets back to a place where we are willing to say no. In a traditional nuclear family, it is dad's job to tell the kid no. It is their job. It is dad's job to say, stop doing that. No. These are the rules of the house. I am the enforcer. I'm in charge. And right now in American society, dad's not home. Joe Biden has dementia and doesn't know where he is. And Kamala Harris is saying, do whatever you want, all in the name of progress. It requires somebody, and this is why the conflict this cycle really is the masculine versus the fake feminine, because Kamala Harris is not even the best virtues of femininity, let's be very clear, clashing up against one another, where Donald Trump's entire campaign, think about it, it's, no, you're not allowed to invade our country anymore. No, you're not allowed to compete in our sports anymore, men and female sports. No, you're not allowed to saber rattle against America if you're our adversaries. It is the reinstituting of boundaries and borders and rules that actually keep us free. This is, I think, the buried lead of the 2024 election. And if people vote for Kamala Harris, you are putting your daughters at great jeopardy and great risk. Not an exaggeration. It is factual. It is proven. It is evidentiary.
It's so interesting what you were just saying. I mean, even in my own family where no one would accuse me of being a weak person, there's something about the dad and the discipline. There is like when my husband, and all it takes is my husband saying our children's first name to them, in that stern way that a man can. It's not mean, but it's a warning, like you're crossing a line. They listen. And I would say I can be tough too, but I am definitely a softer place for them to fall. And I think that's something very natural and very important for children, that they have, the mom who's like, I don't know if he should take the training wheels off the bike yet. I'm not sure. I don't want him to get hurt. And the dad saying, honey, go away for an hour, come back. I got this. There is a dynamic that works between men and women generally. It doesn't mean he has no soft side and she has no tough side. It's just we've sort of ignored these natural differences between men and women and moms and dads, and to our great consequence in the family dynamic. All right, wait, I want to get to Trump because I'm dying to know what you thought about that appearance before the National Association of Black Journalists yesterday. To me, it was so funny. You had all like white liberals being like, he's horrible. And then you had actual black people all over Twitter watching it, posting videos of themselves watching it and tweeting about it, being like, And, so, right? Anyway, he goes into the lion's den, and this reporter, Rachel Scott from ABC News, decides to open up the event with the nastiest question she could dream up. And I will just tell you, as a journalist who has asked Trump very hard questions, I thought this was grossly inappropriate. It's not a presidential debate. That is not how you begin an interview. He does not, unlike a presidential debate, have to be there. You know, there's an understanding in presidential debates in the primary contest that you will be there, at least back then when it was unclear he was going to win it anyway. This is an interview. He doesn't have to be there. Kamala Harris wasn't there. He's doing you a courtesy showing up. So you can ask him tough questions, but there should be a crescendo and a decrescendo. And by the way, the question should be fact-based. And she put a lot of non-facts in her question as though they were true. So I did have a problem with what she did, though I like tough questions as a general principle. Here's how it went. SOT 1.
A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country. I think it's a very rude introduction. I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense, and then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that black voters should trust you with another 4 years.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Okay. Just as a quick fact check. She said that he suggested that he had told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. Actually, what happened there were tweets referencing progressive Democrat congresswomen. There was an assumption that it was aimed at Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ayanna Pressley of the Squad. One of those women actually is foreign-born. She's Ilhan Omar from Somalia. And what he said in the tweet was, it's interesting that these women who originally came from countries whose governments are a complete and total catastrophe, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world, and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. Why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came? And then you've got Rashida Tlaib, who's a Palestinian American. She was born in Detroit, but her mom's from the West Bank. So this is what she said is, I would have tightened that much more if I was going to go there with him. You have to be precise. You cannot take risks like that because it's unfair.
6 years ago.
I know. And then, moreover, Charlie, she gets to the nonsense about you've attacked black journalists, calling them, quote, stupid and racist and a loser. I wasn't aware as a journalist myself of the rule that you cannot attack black journalists. I'm just now finding this out, that they are too fragile, I guess, for us to call them names. Does the black skin make them just completely weak and unable to take criticism? Because that's not true of the amazing black journalists I know and that I've worked with. I don't know who she's talking about.
Yeah, and there's so much there. So, I mean, from her opening remark, she says, a lot of people don't basically want you here. That's the summary of what she says. I mean, excuse me? I mean, that's a former president, hopefully soon to be next president, who's going to address your press corps. And she starts with, a lot of people don't think it's right that you are here. Isn't that the whole point of being a journalist? That's a big get, by the way. I mean, you know how many journalists would love to sit down with a Republican nominee? And she starts with, a lot of people really don't want you here. It was an embarrassment to the National Association of Black Journalists. It shows that they are not actually about pursuing truth or the well-being of the Black community. It shows that they are about advancing Democrat policies. I thought Harris Faulkner was great. I'm glad she was on there. They put her as far away on the panel as humanly possible. But I just couldn't stop laughing at President Trump's response, because as I was watching this live, Megyn, I was like, wow, this is such a nasty question. And he says, and all she had to do is, hello, sir, I understand you got shot 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
How are you doing? I mean, that just
understand how to conduct an interview.
Instead, it's she is a very, very unprofessional, very unimpressive person, and just for her whole tone was so smug, so self-righteous. And we know what happened, Megyn. Here's what happened: is that she probably went out to dinner or drinks with other Black journalists who hate Trump, and they got her all wound up and worked up that she's going to own Donald Trump tomorrow and that she's going to come out with a zinger that's going to be really viral. Well, actually, joke is on her. It was so nasty. It was so intense. It was so outrageous that Donald Trump just threw it right back there. But I want to say this. It was a risk for President Trump to go there. I thought he did wonderfully. I'm sure we're going to talk all about, Miss Harris's alleged Indian or Black heritage. I'm sure we'll get into that. But President Trump going into that environment would have been the equivalent of Kamala Harris sitting down for questions from Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly, and Tucker Carlson at the National Rifle Association or Independent Women's Forum. I mean, that is how, quote unquote, hostile it would have been. And you would have treated Kamala Harris way more fairly than she did. The point is that President Trump did that because he has a heart for the Black community, because he is so tired of being criticized by the media for being racist. I thought he handled everything really, really well. And him going into that environment was a forceful message that this campaign is going to play to win. We are not playing prevent defense. We are not just going to hope this thing comes to us. That's a lot of risk to go there. A lot of risk. You don't know what's going to happen. It's an open-ended forum. I think President Trump is at his best when he is the alpha male of the election. He goes into environments where you're not sure how they're going to work out. There's a lot of unpredictability, some upside, some downside. I thought the entire idea of him going into this type of a forum was a major win.
The other thing is, as an interviewer, you have to understand when the person's basically doing you a favor by coming on your show or coming to your event. Again, it was a favor not done to this group by Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. So they're doing you a favor. They don't have to be there. He could be out campaigning. He doesn't have to sit with this group. There are not that many Black journalists who are going to vote for Trump. So he's doing you a solid. He's getting you eyeballs and attention that you definitely would not have otherwise gotten. So you have to give him a couple. He's got to get a couple. That's just the way it works in journalism. Matt Lauer, he used to say, and he was a great interviewer, whatever his other issues were, he used to say, 2 for them, 1 for me. 2 for them, 1 for me. And I think that's probably the right balance when they're in your studio doing you a solid by coming on. Trump got none. He got none. He got punched in the face right at the beginning. Right. And it was nasty, it was aggressive, and it felt personal. It didn't feel objective and like a genuine search. She could have changed it with a tonal shift. She could have given him a couple. She could have built up there, and she could have said, Mr. Trump, as you know, there was a controversy over your appearance here today. Let me ask you the question that, that's based on, that led to that controversy, about some of the facts that led to that controversy. This is why some people objected. They say the following. He would have been fine with that. He would have handled it and answered it substantively. But that's not, she set herself up for failure. What she wanted was clicks on the internet and applause from her fellow liberal journalists. What she clearly didn't want, Charlie, was to actually get Trump to agree to this ABC debate, because I think there's just zero chance he's going to go on ABC now. Why would he do that?
Yeah, no, that's right. And on the debate format, I think President Trump should debate. but I think he needs to do it as a town hall format. I think that's his only demand. I'm not just going to go one-on-one on Kamala Harris. I want to take questions straight from voters. That's where President Trump is at his best. I think Kamala versus Trump one-on-one, like the CNN debate with Joe Biden, does not favor the country or the race or President Trump, because it will be prosecutor versus felon. Instead, kind of ignore Kamala Harris and put her in an environment where she is not at her best, which is talking to real people. That is unpredictability. That is a lot of risk. You cannot rehearse that. You cannot script that. Back in 2016, we had the Access Hollywood tape and the Billy Bush tape. A couple days later, President Trump saved his campaign at that amazing debate when Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton did the town hall debate. And Hillary Clinton came across as cold and cruel and mean and insincere. And President Trump came across as confident and funny and charming. And he said, you'll be in jail. And he did the whole late-term abortion thing with Hillary Clinton. So I hope President Trump does end up debating. I really think it's important, but it needs to be done in a town hall format. You bypass the bias of moderators. You're able to put Kamala Harris kind of on ice and on defense. And then it's less about candidates talking at each other, and it's more about President Trump talking to the American people, where I think he thrives. When he's in those environments, people see a different side of him that they would not otherwise see, and would also de-escalate the tit for tat, kind of what we saw in the last debate about the golf game, which I think turned a lot of people off. It would kind of be like, okay, she's off to the side. And just from a contrast of body language, Kamala Harris comes across as a very insecure, radical individual. President Trump, it comes across as a stable, confident man who wants to save this country. I think it would be a phenomenal step to just go back to what you're best at, talking directly to voters. That is my both private and public advice to the Trump campaign.
I'm sure he's going to debate. I don't see him not wanting to do that. I understand entirely why he wanted to renegotiate the original agreement, which was with an entirely different candidate. I just want to say a word on she's positing to him that you called black journalists stupid and a loser. Now, as a member of the media and as somebody who's been across from Donald Trump when he's unhappy, I can attest to this personally. He calls journalists a lot of things, even if we don't happen to be black. It is not a black thing. And it was a dishonest way to posit the question. We pulled just a sampling in the past 10 minutes before we went to air. Had I had a longer time, I would have written a longer brief here. Watch it.
I think Jim Acosta is a very unprofessional man. Look, I don't think he's a smart person, but he's got a loud voice.
What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Go ahead. I think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people. But how come, and this was in front of probably not a friend of yours, Chris Wallace, he was the moderator.
Not a friend.
I said, why is it he wants to be Mike, but he doesn't have the talent? He wanted to be his father, but he didn't have the talent of his father was great as miles away.
That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. No. When you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President.
So it seems to be an equal opportunity hater, even if you don't happen to be black, Charlie.
Well, and by the way, that was just, your team did a great job putting that together. But just off the top of my head, those are some of the nicer things he said about journalists. He's been very intense of anybody of any background. But this is what is so damaging. And for example, also on the district attorney thing, President Trump is not attacking them because of their race. He's attacking them because of other things that they are doing. And this is what is so sloppy and it's so destructive. And the National Association of Black Journalists, they should know better, that it's okay to criticize someone who is black if they are doing a bad job. That does not give them a veil of, that they are not able to be criticized, that they are not,
magic cloak,
that they are untouchable. They act as, yeah, precisely. And so, for example, Alvin Bragg or Kim Foxx, the DA of Chicago, are you allowed to criticize them? Of
Marilyn
course you
Mosby,
are.
who just got found guilty of 2 felonies. Should we have not criticized her? She's a criminal.
The answer is no. They say, no, that white people are not allowed to criticize even the most incompetent, evil, destructive behavior from anybody that is black. The country doesn't agree with that, by the way. No. You criticize people based on what they're doing. You base them on their character. But she is peddling this at the National Association of Black Journalists because she is really pushing forward tribal warfare, that an entire class of people are untouchable. That an entire class of people are, you can't criticize them, you can't question them, and you see where this is going, don't you, Megyn? She is creating the preconditions that you are not allowed to criticize Kamala Harris. That's where this is going. She is trying to say, oh, you're not allowed to criticize the local DA because they're black. You're not allowed to criticize black journalists. And once they condition the American population to be, obedient little soldiers on that narrative, well, then you're not allowed to criticize Kamala Harris for the border, for the Munich Security Conference, for the lying, for her staff turnover, because you're a racist. Because we established that when it came to this, that the untouchable people in society have a certain melanin content in their skin. I find that to be such racial regression in this country. And I don't think black people even agree with that.
No, I hate how infantilizing it is toward black Americans. They do not need us playing mommy and daddy when it comes to words that are used about or to them. That is an insult. I would be embarrassed to be sitting next to Glenn Lowry if he heard me say such a thing. Like, I will make sure that your feelings aren't hurt, Glenn. Oh my God. He would pummel me in any intellectual debate. It would be a humiliation for me. And for us, they're asking us to pretend that all black Americans are these little eggshells that we just have to pussyfoot around lest they break. It's just insulting. And they don't realize how insulting it is. And 9 times out of 10, it's a white woke liberal saying this. Here it was a black woke liberal saying it. Doesn't make it any better. Let me take a quick break. And when we come back, we got to get into Trump's comments about whether Kamala Harris is black or Indian. Of course, all the morning shows today, yeah, they were upset. More with Charlie straight ahead. Do you ever think, how can I work this hard and still be in debt? The piles of overdue bills, the threatening phone calls, never having money to do anything. If you are trapped in debt, Done With Debt can be a way out. They have developed aggressive new strategies to end your debt permanently. Done With Debt stands between you and those terrible, harassing bill collectors. They tirelessly negotiate with your creditors to lower or even forgive what you owe. And they do it all without bankruptcy or new loans. One client said, one phone call saved us a fortune. I wish we did this long ago. Done With Debt has unique strategies to get you out of debt faster and put more money in your pocket every month. But you do need to hurry because some debt solutions are time sensitive and you don't want to miss out. Visit donewithdebt.com. Speak with one of their debt relief strategists for free. Just ask yourself, what do I have to lose? Nothing except your debt. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. Donewithdebt.com. Welcome back to the Megyn Kelly Show. Back with me now, Charlie Kirk, founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and host of the Charlie Kirk Show. Okay, so part 2, that's sending the left into quite a tizzy, was the following exchange between Trump and ABC's Ms. Scott.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
Give me
a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always
But you know
identified
what?
as a black woman.
I
She went to a
respect
historically
either
black
one.
college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe
I
that
think
she is
somebody should look into that too when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans
I really
have
don't
said?
know. I mean, I really don't know. Could be. There are some, and there are plenty.
So, Charlie, yeah, what's your reaction to that? Because the media is having a meltdown.
I'll tell you what. Well, no, first of all, I mean, of course she's a DEI hire, and we don't have to speculate. Joe Biden said he's only choosing her because it's a black female. He made that as a campaign promise in the Democrat primary. So this is not hard. And so they're so angry that Joe Biden said, for example, Ketanji Brown Jackson, she's a DEI hire. Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. And people say, oh, you're not allowed to say that. Joe Biden said it. Now, let's just go second to that, is that Kamala Harris is not exactly brilliant, okay? She's not exactly somebody you would consider to be over the top in the intelligence department. However, that's besides the point. The point is that she was chosen primarily for this reason. And Joe Biden told you that. And so Joe Biden did not do a colorblind meritocracy of who is the best possible person. No, he said, I'm only going to pick from a small subset of black females. And remember the finalists, Megyn? It was like Karen Bass, Kamala Harris, and it was like 3 or 4 people, and they were all black women. And so, yes, that's what happens when you get diversity, equity, inclusion. So anyway, second to this, which I think is very important, which Donald Trump decided to go on a very, let's just say, dangerous, however, very high reward attack vector against Kamala Harris if he is able to pull it off. And as a side note, do you notice the audience was kind of laughing? They were liking it.
They were.
I mean, part of the audience really kind of loved what Trump was doing. They were just,
thought it was funny.
They just
They
weren't
laughed.
given permission. You know, oh no, stop laughing. Because they know it's true, right? They know that Kamala Harris is not from traditional black America. But what Donald Trump decided to do, again, it's going to be difficult to pull off, but I think he can do it, is that a narrative that people already have about Kamala Harris is that she is fake, is that she is inauthentic, is that she's artificial, is that she's synthetic. From her policy positions, from her entire career, she is not who she says she is. And I think it is a very effective attack vector. Now, it's dangerous because you're involving race, and what is something that is very difficult terrain to navigate. If anyone can do it, President Trump can, for no other reason than just through brute force. He has the ability to kind of just power through it. But yes, we've had Kamala Harris on the record before say that she's Indian, post Indian family heritage pictures, do, cooking shows with other female Indian actresses. All that is correct and that's true. But we saw this exhibited recently when she did her rally in Atlanta, Georgia, when she starts what is called code switching. The Democrats do it all the time, where AOC, when she speaks at Netroots Nation, Al Sharpton's thing, she starts talking in kind of black parlance, like, and all of y'all out here, it's, what a second. And Kamala Harris goes down to Atlanta. She all of a sudden gets a black Southern accent. And so this is a very important fact of the Democrat Party that they pander. And that's the final point I'll say with this, is that you can criticize President Trump for that appearance. What he said at that National Association of Black Journalists is the same thing he'll say at the NRA, at Turning Point USA, or at the RNC. There was not a sliver of pandering on immigration, on inflation, on any issue. Where Democrats, they try to be all things to all people, constantly changing their colors to try to get more votes just for political power.
Here is Kamala in Atlanta doing that, trying out her code switching.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024. Yes, we will.
She doesn't talk like that. I mean, she grew up in Canada and California. It
makes me love Trump more, because when Trump goes to Georgia, he wears his Manhattan suit with a bright red tie and talks exactly the same. I mean, there's no pandering, right? There is no change. And Kamala, the Democrats do this all the time, and I think that it just oozes insincerity. And
I think we have the AOC
Kamala
one
Harris
too,
is a fake candidate. Oh, you have to, it's too good, where she just says, and oh, y'all, she just starts talking in a way she never talks previously. But the Democrats have done this for quite some time. And I hope their voters start to realize how little their leaders actually think of them and how small the Democrat elite consider them and how insignificant the Democrats actually consider them. But yes, President Trump doing this, it was perfectly fine. It's risky. The payoff is potentially enormous, which is creating a narrative that Kamala Harris is not who she says she is. She is a fabrication. She is a synthetic hologram of the Democrat regime, and she's not popular. She's
in
not
favor
likable.
of
She is
banning
very
fracking
cringe.
until she's not in favor of banning fracking. She's in favor of citizenship for illegals and not enforcing the border until she is in favor of enforcing the border. She's in favor of taking away private health insurance and making us all go on Medicare until she isn't. I mean, that's one of the problems. She hasn't done any interviews since she announced. She hasn't done a single press conference. All she's done is go appear at like one rally and then in front of two sororities. I mean, what is that about? But here is to the code switching, Hillary and AOC.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Is what organizing looks like.
That's right.
This is what building power looks like. This is what changing the country looks like.
So obvious. I'm so uncomfortable, Charlie.
No, it's just, I mean, again, you look at that like, wow, that's why we beat Hillary Clinton in 2016. And the same thing I think is going to happen to Kamala Harris, because with Hillary Clinton, people thought that she was, honestly, some people thought she was evil, that she was insincere, but fake. There's almost nothing worse with the Gen Z. And how many times, Megyn, do you hear in all these focus groups, you know, Gen Z really wants authenticity. They want someone to be really who they are. Okay, you want that? Say what you want about Trump. The dude is authentic. There is not any pandering. There is no fakery there. I mean, the guy got shot. You saw who he was right then and there. And with Kamala Harris, she looks to her handlers and says, so what accent am I doing today? And that's why I love that town hall debate. Go back to what I said earlier. What is she going to... Exactly. I think it is so out of favor of where the country is. And again, Kamala Harris is going to get a temporary polling boost, a sugar high. Anticipate a rather annoying August. It's going to happen. Just keep on doing the tough work. Keep on going out there. The race will come back into I think a place of normalcy in September. But all those things being said, is that Kamala Harris, if I had to describe it, she is fake, she is mean, she is radical. She's a very nasty person. Don't take it from me. 92% of her staff is turned over and they say the worst things about her in the media. She is insincere and she is not who she says she is. And she is the most radical vice president in history, was the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate. And she would deliver a death blow to this country if she is given a full presidential term.
So to the point of Trump's authenticity, here he is on the campaign trail. Last night, he was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania yesterday. Look at this, SOT 19.
Because everything about Kamala Harris rollout, it's phony and it's fake. Did you see when President Obama and Michelle called? Did you see? Hello? Hello? Yes. Yes. Who is this? Oh, this is Michelle and Barack. Oh. So surprised to hear. They got 4 cameras in front. Oh, I'm so surprised it's on speakerphone. Listen, we just want to congratulate you on destroying Joe Biden. I mean, on winning the... Hey, is Joe Biden going to... Was that the phoniest phone call you've ever seen?
He's very good at seeing the seam
By
in
the
the
way,
story.
I
He's
love
right.
this. It's so good. Very good. And yes, she doesn't even know how to answer a speakerphone. She's holding it up here and she says, oh, thank you, Barack. But was that like their 5th or 6th take of trying to do that? And that's who she is. She's never been likable. She's never been someone that people appeal to. All of her quote unquote enthusiasm is, largely built on a house of cards. There you go. Look, she's holding it up there. Yeah, the Obamas call Kamala. Look, who answers a speakerphone like that, Megyn? That's
no one. That's
really demented
It
stuff.
is so phony and so fake. So back to the media meltdown. I want to show you a little bit of what we heard I'm going to play a montage of the reaction, and then I'm going to play you what I heard on Morning Joe this morning. Watch this. We'll start with Saten.
Again, every time Rachel Scott asked a question, his response was to attack her first. We're hoping that maybe he would have a little bit more of a robust conversation.
We saw that misogyny come through over and over and over again. I'm so sorry that they felt the need to basically be used so that he could appeal to his MAGA base, because that's exactly who he's appealing to. The white men out there who are racist, who support him.
He's going back to his old playbook of racism that really propelled his campaign back in 2016. He doesn't have anything to offer except for more
and he
racism.
Spent all of his time trying to convince each of us to be afraid of other people who are.
Use them as a backboard to score with the MAGA crowd to say, I'm one of y'all. I will go to their own conference and do everything but call them the N-word.
Oh, okay. He was just short of calling them the N-word and then doubling down.
These
Here's
people
Mara
are
Gay.
so-
I know. Stand by on MSNBC this morning. She's a member of the New York Times editorial board. Listen to this.
To Black Americans, this kind of attack feels actually quite familiar, because what it really was an attempt by the former president of the United States to, when talking about the vice president, but also to a room filled with Black journalists, Black people, to say, you're nothing. You're whatever I think you are. You are whatever I say you are. You don't get to self-define. You don't get to be American. I say what you are because I am a white man. That is old thinking. It's an old playbook. It's all Donald Trump has.
So Trump saying that she used to favor more her Indian heritage in interviews and outwardly facing is telling Black people that they're nothing.
Yeah, I think this is so sloppy. I hope it doesn't work. I don't know anymore. I guess we'll see. It is so destructive to the advancement and the flourishing and the prosperity of Black America, which I have a heart for and you have a heart for. This is not going to fix the single motherhood problem in the Black community, or the urban violence problem, or the gang violence problem, or the Black economic issues. This constant idea that the person who came to your event to offer an agenda for the American people is just immediately a racist. He's terrible. Has the Democrat Party done a good job of improving the livelihood or the well-being of Black America? No. Black America is significantly poorer, in a more dangerous position since the Democrat Party has executed a monopoly over the Black population in this country. And so, yes, I mean, I don't even know how to respond to some of this. I think it's so vapid. I think it's so shallow, and it's incredibly destructive to discourse, and it's not going to make anybody's lives better.
I mean, to me, it's really interesting because our pal Sage Steele, who, by the way, is out on an episode that we dropped this morning that dovetails beautifully into that trans discussion we had at the beginning of the hour. She and Jennifer Say and Michelle Tafoya, all legendary sports journalists and an athlete in Jennifer's case, have come out with this scholarship for women who stand up for themselves in sport. You know, women like that Italian boxer who have to forego prize money in order to protect themselves. In any event, check that episode out. But Sage originally ticked off ESPN when she worked there by criticizing Obama for calling himself Black. And she was asked the correct question directly, and she answered it. But she just said she's mixed race. Her dad's Black, her mom's white. And she said, okay, if that's how he identifies, that's fine. But he was raised by his white mother. That's who he was raised by. And she said, I always feel like, to say like I'm Black would be an abandonment in a way of my mom. Like I'm mixed race. Forgive me, because she's a lot more articulate about it than I am. But this idea of like, if you're mixed race, do you front one half over the other? Do you play one half up? Do you have an affinity more for one half, at least when you're outwardly facing toward the community, is an interesting question. Trump is not the first one to raise this and say like, you know what, there's kind of an interesting thing going on here. And he went back, clearly somebody brought to his attention that in a lot of articles about Kamala Harris when she was younger and coming up, they said she was Indian. That's what they said. And she did go to a historically Black college. So did a lot of white people. She was part of a Black sorority. I don't think it's that she never acknowledged she was Black. It's not like she wasn't, she was trying to like pass as something else. But he's not wrong that the Indian piece of her heritage was front and center in a lot of the early press about Kamala. But you're not allowed to raise things like that when you're Donald Trump. You're not allowed to talk about it like that. And let's just say Trump doesn't do it as gingerly as some others might. I'll give you the last word on it, Charlie.
Yeah, no, I agree. It just kind of plays into this idea that Kamala Harris is an inauthentic person. And look, this is going to be the #1 news story for a couple days. So we're all going to learn everything that Kamala Harris has ever said about her ancestry and her background. So we're going to get a full ancestry tree, right? Like we're going to get an entire 23andMe picture of the Kamala Harris gene pool. So just get ready for that. It's just going to be completely mapped out. And so we're all going to become subject matter experts in this.
It's true. We're going to find out what sort of genetic issues have been passed down. You know, does she have an aversion to sugar? What is it? We'll know it all.
We're going to find out. Totally. That's right.
Charlie, it's always a pleasure. Great talking to you as always.
Thank you. Thanks.
Coming
Megyn.
up next, 2 first-time guests on the show. Steve Deace. He was huge during the primary season. He was a very good follow on Twitter if you didn't follow him. He was not in favor of Donald Trump. He really wanted Ron DeSantis, but he has great points about our media, their dishonesty, and where we are in America. And then Delano Squires will be with me, first-time guest on the program. Looking forward to seeing them next. The ability to provide for your family has changed quite a bit in the last couple of years. When you go shopping, you're getting less, but spending the same. You might have to decide what to buy and what to do without. But I want to tell you about American Financing. If you're a homeowner, they will take the equity you've built up and use it to pay off your high interest debt. They are saving customers an average of $854 a month, and they are closing some people in as fast as 10 days. Start today, and you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. Just call American Financing to see what they can do for you. The number is 888-528-1219, 888-528-1219, or go to americanfinancing.net/Kelly. Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your career calling, you can impact your family, friends, and community. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 330 academic programs as of December 2023, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. Welcome back to the Megyn Kelly Show. Joining me now for more on the political whirlwind that we're experiencing, Steve Deace, best-selling author and host of the Steve Deace Show, and Delano Squires, contributor to TheBlaze and research fellow for the Heritage Foundation. Guys, welcome to the show. There's so much to discuss. Just finished up with Charlie Kirk, we left off on Trump's appearance at the NABJ conference yesterday. I'll give you a little of Vivek Ramaswamy on the question of mixed race and how Kamala Harris has played it thus far in her 59 years.
I think it's a hard fact, Martha. It's just a fact, whether you like it or not, that many Indian Americans in the United States are indeed somewhat offended by the way Kamala has suddenly cast aside the Indian American side of her identity. She leaned into it when she ran for office in California. Big Asian American and Indian American population. So she wore that when it was convenient. She's wearing a different identity now when it's politically convenient on a national stage. Personally, I don't think we should be relying on these ethnic identities at all. We're actually American. And the problem is when you're Kamala Harris and you actually do lean into your identity politics, then you open the door to that type of criticism.
I mean, you watch it and I'm like, oh, God, what's he saying? And I know a lot of Republicans are like, do not go there. There's got to be a reason Trump went there. Charlie thinks it's because he's trying to get the narrative going that she's a phony. Delano, I'll start with you. What do you make of it?
Well, I think part of the reason that he went there is because this is something that other people have been discussing. It's becoming louder now, but I believe back in 2019, Don Lemon was on a panel, or had April Ryan on a panel, And he was pushing back, and he was saying, yes, she's black, but she's not African American. And I do think that there is, and I see it just based on some of the corners of the internet that I tend to frequent, that there is a growing sentiment that there should be more delineation between Black Americans, the American descendants of slaves, and those from immigrant backgrounds. And I think, particularly because Kamala Harris is someone who, her African ancestry is on her dad's side, and even that is, you're talking about one of his grandparents, is one of those things where people are saying, look, we're not beholden to the one-drop rule anymore. And this is not the plantation primary where we just say, okay, anybody who claims to be a particular identity gets to make that claim publicly and benefit from what they see as a legacy of sort of race and struggle against racism and struggle for civil rights. So I think President Trump probably picked up on this. Someone probably let him know that this is something that's out there, and he's responding to it. Do I think, is it where I would spend my time if I was running for president? No, it is not. I think the obsession with identity on both sides of the aisle is deeply unhealthy when it comes to our political culture. But this is where we are. And he tends to fight like it's gangs in New York, and this is the way the left tends to fight him, and so we're in this battle.
Steve, part of this reminded me a little of Roger Ailes, because when you work for Roger Ailes, if you got in trouble in the news, he would usually run in to take gunfire for you. Like, he would do something to call attention to himself or Fox News Channel. He was great like that. And part of me wondered whether Trump was just trying to put an end to the pile-on J.D. Vance, because no one can change the conversation like Donald Trump, literally nobody. So I don't know, maybe that's just my own background speaking, but what did you make of the whole thing, and how long a controversy is this, do you think?
So Megyn, all of my analysis comes through the filter of, I just think, non-communist America desperately has to win this election. And that's really all I care about. And that's why I did what I did in the primary. And that's why I'm giving the analysis I give now. It's about the America name on the front of the jersey, not the player name on the last name on the back. And right now, this is going to come down to, can Republicans flop or switch, I should say, the 2 to 3 points of independence they lost in 2022? And can Donald Trump get a George W. Bush-like turnout of white women and married women? Republicans have not lost married women since 1996. Trump won them twice. They've not lost white women this century. The best Democrats have done was a tie in 2000. If he just improves by a couple of points with those demographics, he will win this election, regardless of whatever the media is currently saying with this charm offensive with Kamala. And so if what we're discussing is parlayed into a message like what Charlie was discussing before we came on, that this is feeding an overall narrative that she is a fraud, she is a phony, she's not a serious presidential candidate, I think then therefore it is a brilliant tactic. If it is fed into a narrative similar to the stories that are making the rounds today on the heels of Israel taking out high members of the Islamic Command in the Middle East, the Biden administration turns around and cuts a plea deal with 9/11 hijackers, that we've got Jordanian illegal aliens found on military bases being released on their own recognizance, all right, and that this is dangerous. This is a threat to security, your security as a mom, as a family, as an American. And you can't trust these people. They're fake, they're phony. You can't trust them at all. If it's parlayed into that message that hits issues that the voters that are going to decide this thing care about, then I think it's brilliant. If it ends up just being what Delano was just describing, where we're just going to sit there and these are going to be replays of the coronavirus task force hearings, where they're just going to sit there most days and lob bombs back and forth, then my fear is we are going to play right into what's lost the last few elections. And so I think to me, it matters about whether it plays into an overall strategy or not, or whether it's a fight just for the purpose of having a fight.
First of all, nice Herb Brooks reference. Appreciate it as a lover of that film and story, Miracle. But second of all, I think my own take on it is it's only people who hate Trump who think this is earth-shattering. How many controversial things has Donald Trump said where the left freaks out like, this is it. Yay, he finally is going to lose, include whatever group. And he doesn't lose them. It's baked in that he says controversial things. I do think he's strategic on it. I definitely think there was a reason he said it the way he said it and brought it up. And, I think back just even to when he started to attack me after that one debate, his numbers went up. People liked seeing him challenge someone who gets in his face. Even if it's a woman with authority, They enjoy seeing that. They hate the media. And I am a part of the media, and I get that. And she is a part of the media. And I think that's really what this is going to boil down to, that he was unafraid of this journalist. He was unafraid of the black journalists in that room, which are sort of like the white woman journalists from Fox. You like previously untouchable, right, by any other candidate. But here he is going to the place that hurts Delano. And while the chattering class may recoil in horror, I think regular people are like, eh. And I'll just give you one example. You know the Carter family? This is a group of athletes who got their season canceled, I think thanks to COVID. Anyway, it's a group of black men who now have a very popular show. It's got over 1 million subscribers. And their video reacting to the Trump speech yesterday, or a Q&A yesterday, is going viral. Here's a sampling of these guys watching that Q&A. Watch this.
Imagine if somebody treated Kamala that rude.
That's the first thing I thought about.
I'm just
all immunity.
I'm lost at why everyone think that's like
He
a bad
just said
thing.
he's
not giving them all immunity. He said it's a case-by-case thing.
Case by case.
People were saying that's not a direct answer. That's a direct answer.
answer.
When I was scrolling through the Twitter, it's all white journalists calling him racist, saying that black people should be offended. I'm tired of white
trying to get
people.
some retweets.
I'm tired of these white liberals telling me how to feel. People keep using she went to HBCU. White people go to HBCUs.
Yeah. Our coach,
Mexicans, Hispanics go to HBCU. So they're
Yeah, our
black
coach-
now?
our
They're
white
black
coach
because you went to an
went to
HBCU? Are you white because you went to a PWI?
What do you make of that?
There's a few things that come to mind. One, again, the point that he made at first in terms of imagine how someone would react if they treated, if a journalist, particularly a white journalist, treated Kamala Harris that way, I think is a very salient point. One of the things that I don't think over the last couple of weeks that we've sort of missed is someone tried to kill President Trump.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously it was a big story for a couple of days.
That whole thing.
But the reaction that the left has when they feel that he says mean words is far out of proportion to the reaction that the media has had when someone actually tried to take his life. And I think that should be mentioned. But the other thing to me that I find, particularly just given the work that I do, interesting, is that this is a group of black men. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about whether black men are going to break for Trump in greater numbers than in years past. I think that will be the case. I think he'll get a larger share of the black male vote than he did in 2020. But I think the bigger thing, and this is reflective of NABJ, because there was also some controversy around the fact that there were no black male journalists on the stage asking him questions. And I think part of the reason is that many of the institutions, particularly within the black community, are either run or have the sort of cultural imprint of black women. And you see this most clearly in the Democrat Party, where they will openly say black women are the backbone of our party. They save democracy, they save the world, they save America. And when you frame things that way, black men go from being leaders of their homes and their communities to being damsels in distress who need to be rescued by their women. And I think that there's a growing population of black men who are getting tired of that particular narrative. And they understand that more than policy, what the two parties offer is a difference in worldview. And what Democrats offer is a matriarchal worldview that says everyone wins when women lead. When women run the show, and particularly black women run the show, and black men follow them to the voting booth, follow them in the home, follow them in the culture, that everyone wins. And I think that there are a growing number of men who are willing to play political homewrecker if we can break that hold that Democrats have on the black community.
That is fascinating. That was something I know Roland Martin was also criticizing, the fact that there was no black male journalist up there asking the questions. We found the Don Lemon clip with April Ryan. Here it is.
When you see her blackness, but she is also South Asian. Her mom is South Asian, and her dad is Jamaican.
April, let me listen.
Yes.
More power to her, and I think it's great. That should be enough. Listen, it is enough that she's a black woman.
We are not a monolith.
But no.
But they did the same thing.
No. I think you're not hearing what people are saying. The people who are saying is she blacking up, that's bull. That's BS. But to want a distinction to say, is she African American, or is she black, or is she whatever? There is nothing wrong with that. There is a difference between being African American and being black. Latino people are people of color, but they're not black. They're brown people.
She is a woman of color, but she is a black woman.
Okay, that's why I agree with that. I agree with that. But is she African American? No. But is she African American? There's a difference. There's nothing wrong with that.
The old Don Lemon there, Delano. Good times. All right, wait. Let's I want to shift gears here because Steve, you referenced something that I really want to get to, and we haven't touched it yet, and that is the plea deal for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. I can't believe it. I mean, I can, but it's amazing to me that we just gave the guy who dreamed up 9/11, along with Osama bin Laden, life in prison on the taxpayer's dime. He killed almost 3,000 people, Americans, and he's not getting the death penalty. He's not getting the death penalty. And the Biden White House has said, oh, we didn't know anything about it. You know what they did know about? They've been in court time and time again, challenging the underlying legal proceedings against Gitmo detainees as inappropriate, the product of torture, and so on and so forth, to make it as hard as humanly possible to actually get a conviction in this case against him. And now they want to pretend that they've had nothing to do with this, but that man's going to live out his life and die peacefully in his sleep, unlike the 3,000 Americans he killed on 9/11. It's an outrage.
Two things about this, Megyn. Number one, I think it's day 270, I believe, that we have had hostages in Gaza unreturned since October the 7th. And so they are sitting over there. Who knows how many times they've been brutalized, assaulted, raped by the same worldview that we are now cutting plea deals with. The timing of doing this on the heels of Israel striking mighty blows against the Islamic high command in both Hezbollah and Hamas. I don't think that that is coincidental. You had to know that the Hamas caucus within the Democratic Party was going to try to come up with some way to wink and nod to the Islamo-fascist over there that, hey, we still got your back. And this is what that is. I'm 100% convinced of it. But I think this also ties into the conversation that we were just having about Trump and disruption. You know, when I was on the Cruz campaign strategizing against him in 2016, and so I got a master's class on how to get your rear end kicked by Donald Trump. I know exactly what that looks like. I lived it every day for months. Okay. And what he masterfully did was he parlayed his disruption. All the stuff that we were just talking about that he is doing to Kamala on race and ethnicity that makes their side in that clip from Don Lemon you just played, the amount of, I mean, the billable hours of psychoanalysis, you can make millions psychoanalyzing those people that are that far into the nitty gritty, the lint in their navels on racial identity and idolatry. That frankly is insane. And he did that to those people. He broke them, but he beat them. You can break them all you want. We have to beat them. He beat them by parlaying it into a signature issue, particularly immigration. All right, he broke the fourth wall on immigration, shattered it. Conversations that we were told for years by the Republican Party we couldn't have, terms and statistics we were told we couldn't say or cite. He shattered all of that and rode that issue to the nomination and then largely to the election in and of itself. He needs to do the same thing here, because if we don't parlay his disruption into issues, then it becomes about whose disruption and psychosis. You see this on MSNBC, you see it on Fox, and a lot of independents, frankly, get exhausted by all of this. It needs to be tied into issues like what we're just talking about right now, that these people that are letting the 9/11 hijackers go, the mastermind behind it, get a plea agreement. Letting illegal aliens from Jordan go. There was the Bill Malugin report last week, over 100 Chinese nationalists caught across the border illegally in San Diego, because we all know China is just a hop, skip, and a jump across the Rio Grande. Okay, I mean, to parlay these things into issues so that they do not just become about battles versus personalities. The Democrats want this. They want to remind everybody, hey, you once traded mean tweets for record inflation and 30-year mortgage rates that are 100% higher than they were before we took over 4 years ago. Let's see if you'll do it again. What Trump needs to show is my mean tweets. What they do is they disrupt the system so that now the system on issues you care about works for you. We need to parlay this to actual issue solutions. So it's not just a personality contest, but a personality contest that wins on issues for the average American.
This is such a good point. You know, Delano, I listen to what Steve is saying, and I think about what's happened in Kamala in the first week or so. And she's done absolutely nothing different than she used to do. You know, she hasn't given some big policy speech. She didn't come out as a great orator with, you know, inspiring rhetoric the way Obama did. You know, there's nothing special about her in the way that, you know, there was about Obama, where you could see him coming from a mile away and you were like, oh shit, you know, it's gonna be very hard to defeat this guy. That's not her jam. But the team around her has been very good over the first 11 days in changing the national narrative about her, getting the messaging out. J.D. Vance and the Trump ticket are weird, and everybody picked it up. And of course, the Democrat news allies do whatever they're told to do, just trying to change her image. So, and I think Trump's got a very good team around him this time, very professional. I mean, look how they've navigated his way back from the dead, you know, and I don't mean the assassination attempt. I mean, post J6 and the way people were looking at and feeling about Trump. But do they need to be doing more? Like, do they need now in the last 90 plus days of this election to do what Steve is talking about? Take the thing that Trump may not be great at. He has the instinct for the messaging, but maybe he doesn't make the connections that he needs to, the way Steve just said. And isn't it their job to get this out in all the advertisements and all over social media and with all of Trump's surrogates? Just the Republicans seem more poorly organized to me than the Dems.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I definitely think that he should make a focus on tying the issues, the biggest issues of the day, to the American voter. And I think part of the reason it's difficult is because, honestly, I'd say over the last 20 years, certainly since 2008, our electoral politics and our political culture has become sort of much more consumed with personalities than policy issues. And sometimes the way I say it is, if our political culture was high school, the class that we major in is theater and not civics. So everything is about how viral do my tweets go, and and this is a bipartisan issue, by the way. So I'm not just attacking one side of the aisle. But yeah, so I think he should focus on tying those issues, those bread and butter issues, and spend more time focused on policy and less on personality.
Or at least his team should.
Yes, or at least his team should. On the Harris side, one of the things I don't think that the sort of the leftist media gets right when they talk about Democrats is the fact that to be a Democrat in good standing, everyone basically has to sing from the same song sheet. So to the left, diversity means everyone says the same thing, but looks different. So what you end up getting is not a real policy debate outside of the socialist wing. What you get is a choice between avatars. So you can get, you push a button and you can get a black woman or a black and Indian woman. You can get Gretchen Whitmer. You can get Gavin Newsom. You can get Joe Biden. But they all sort of fall in line when it comes to particularly the big three issues, what I call their CAP agenda: climate, abortion, and pride. Everyone says the same thing. On the right, diversity means people who have different ideas on different topics. Similar worldview, but different ideas. You have your NatCons. You have your social conservatives. You have your neoconservatives. You have your fiscal hawks. You have your government reformers. The left has no such ideological diversity, and that is really coming out. So really what they do, once they figure out what avatar they want to choose, then they have to go about the work of polishing that person up and selling that person to the American public. And I just think it's her turn up for them to do that.
So good. Everyone, what diversity means to them is everyone looks different but says the same thing. I've never heard it summed up so succinctly and effectively. That's exactly it. And that is the reason why, Steve, we probably will not be hearing Kamala Harris run to the microphones to condemn what just happened at the Olympics with a female boxer having to give up 46 seconds into the match because she was being pummeled by a man posing as a woman, because she needs to have the same message as the rest of her party. And the rest of her party and she favor diversity over all else. And that diversity includes men in women's spaces. That's diverse, all right, but it's also unsafe and it's unfair. And this, I just want to show you. So it's the woman in blue who had to call a race or the match herself. 46 seconds in, she went down on her knees, She cried and she said, this is unfair. She had been told by her coach not to do it. Many people said, don't do it. And she did it because she said, I believe in respecting my opponent. He did not respect her. This is a man who got into this ring and beat the hell out of this female. Let me just show you this woman, the Italian boxer. She's not some lightweight. We actually went back and pulled video of her other boxing matches. This woman's a badass. She's tough. She can very well take a punch to the face, many punches to the face. This is years ago. This is a different opponent. And she doesn't just whine and cry and give up. She takes it. But boxing a man, getting punched in the face over and over by a man is a different story. By the way, in this particular video, our Italian lady is in red. So don't be confused. And it's a different opponent, but who happens to be female in this race, in this match. Steve, I'm outraged over this. And there is zero chance that Kamala Harris is going to speak out about it.
Megyn, I have to tell you, when I saw this video this morning, and it ends with her on her knees in the ring, just sobbing. And I tell you, as a girl dad, as someone who was born to a 15-year-old mom, because my biological didn't bother. Instead, his dad paid off my grandmother to try to get to my mom to abort me, so they wouldn't have to own a bastard into their prominent Democratic family. We were on food stamps, ADC. I literally grew up with my mom. She married a stepdad who ended up being very abusive and, physically, emotionally, mentally. I mean, I saw women get beat and hit in my home growing up. I finally got to the age where I had to physically defend my mom against my dad. And now I'm a girl dad myself. And so I just, watching her sob in that ring, the story of how I was brought up and the family conditions that I was brought up in, very similar to what goes on in a lot of urban America, the emasculation of the American male, as Delano was just talking about comprehensively, to the point we've created a term called toxic masculinity. There's no such thing. There's just masculinity, and any other male behavior is actually toxic. Men are to protect and defend women. That is one of the primary creative purposes of our masculinity, of the strength that God gives us, is to do those things. And I grew up in an environment where the men abandoned my mom, the men abused my mom. And I've done everything I could possibly do as a father to, under God's grace, to reverse that dysfunctional trend generationally in our family as a dad that has existed for eons. And so many American families have been touched by the exact spirit of the age that occurred in that ring. And you see this woman she's done everything the culture told her to do, to be strong, to be tough, okay, to fight for herself. She did it all. And then in the end, she was broken by that exact same culture, to the point that all the work and effort and everything she put in to be the best she could be was completely just done in. And where were the men? I remember the first time Leah Thomas, I watched him swim. 400, your audience, I'm sure, knows the story very well.
Thank you for the correct pronoun.
Yeah, thank you. 462nd place, all right, when he tried to compete against men. The very next year, he's a multinational champion of competing against the women. And I remember this the first time, and I was sitting on my show on TheBlaze just screaming out, where are the dads? Like, in any other era, you know why this would not have happened in any other era? Because the dads would have come out of the stands and said, oh, hell no, that's not happening. We're not doing that here. It wouldn't,
no, we've
and
talked
therefore,
about the fact,
it would not have even been
Canada,
contemplated to occur.
We were one of the first to report this story going up on in Canada, because we work with Revolve News a lot, and they're amazing. And there's a 50-year-old man who goes by the name Melody Weishart swimming against 13-year-old girls in the pool. He changes his clothes full frontal naked in the locker room with these little girls. I think I can speak with you, for you both, saying you would never allow this to happen to your daughter. I would never, my husband would never allow this to happen to my daughter. I don't know what's happening to our friends up north and our
Let me just say the
hat,
phrase, I'll dare a jury to convict me. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me give you this, Delano, just reaction coming in here. Riley Gaines, who, by the way, as we did, warned about this exact thing happening in this exact match. Now she just tweeted, a male getting his feelings hurt matters more to the IOC and the Democrats than a woman getting physically hurt. Read that again. And she's exactly right about that. And then there's more. J.K. Rowling, a young female boxer, has just had everything she's worked and trained for snatched away because you allowed a male, IOC, to get in the ring with her. You're a disgrace. Your safeguarding, in quotes, is a joke. And Paris 24 will be forever tarnished by the brutal injustice done to Carini. Angela Carini is the female boxer.
I mean, it's hard to put into words. I mean, Steve captured my exact sentiment. I have two daughters as well. I don't want to say anything that's going to get me fired from Heritage Foundation, so I'm just going to go and address your this point directly. I mean, we talk sometimes. We talked about Trump at NABJ, and again, there's a lot of criticism of the left because people feel like they use race in ways, that are craven and self-interested and really don't serve the needs of African Americans. I think an even more glaring issue is how the party that claims to speak for the sisterhood can go from "I am woman, hear me roar" to "this is a man's world" at the drop of a dime. And you cannot find a single Democrat in Congress who will stand up and say there are only two sexes and switching is not allowed, and stand up for the women that they claim that they've been standing up for the last 60 years. So this is not just disheartening. I mean, this is an abomination, if I could use such strong language. And not only am I frustrated with the politicians, but I think of all the people in sports media who can prattle on any issue that they believe deals with social justice. So these athletes want to kneel during the national anthem, and someone hung a piece of rope in Bubba Wallace's NASCAR garage, and they can talk at length about any issue that's on the periphery with respect to sports and race and culture. But the issue that's right at the heart of sports culture today, where you have thousands, if not more, high school athletes, female athletes, crying out into the wilderness saying, "Can someone in sports media please stand up for me?" And none of them will do it. The Jamel Hills won't do it. The Stephen A. Smiths won't do it. The Megan Rapinos won't do it. None of these people who are in sports media will do it. And one of the things that's most frustrating, and I'll close with this, is that these, particularly for the women, some of the most prominent women in sports and in media, who say, "I've had to fight all my life against sexism, and everything that I've done has been, I've had to earn and take from the men who want to keep me down." Some of these same women who defined their career trajectory, again, against misogyny and sexism, have finally found a group of men that they're willing to submit to. Because when the impossible women step up, right, then they say, "Oh, I can't say anything. I can't speak against that man. I can speak against sort of the misogyny I've made up in my head, but I can't speak against Leah Thomas or this particular male athlete." And it's incredibly frustrating to see.
Wow. I will say Stephen A. Smith was on the program the other day, and he did say he was against this. I asked him about it, but we need advocacy. I want to say also, absolutely nobody's calling for any sort of violence to be done against this Canadian swimmer or anybody else. What we want is the violence against us to stop. We want the violence against us and our girls to stop. And by the way, it's about to be unleashed again in the Olympics. Next Saturday, August 3rd, this Saturday, is the quarterfinal where Algeria's male boxer, posing as a female, Iman Khalif, will compete against Hungary's Luca Anna Harmori. And she will have to face this same man who beat the Italian Angela Carini to a pulp, to the point where she felt she was in danger and had to call the match. It's deeply wrong. It's a problem not just for the IOC, but for all of us. And if we don't start speaking out against this in the press, women in sport, our male allies, we're going to get a whole lot more of it. Your kid, your daughter, and mine too. Steve, Delano, thank you both so much for being here. Great having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My gosh. I just want to say, please, we taped this episode with Jennifer Say and Michelle Tafoya and Sage Steele yesterday. And we talked about a lot of this. We talked about this case before it had happened. And it's, what can you do, right? What can you do other than speak out? There's not a lot, but they're trying. So they created this scholarship, basically, where it's for girls, for women like Angela to say, you don't have to box. And I realize this woman spent her whole life, she's at the Olympics. This is a dream come true. How many women did she have to beat out for this spot? She made it. She made it. She wants gold. And she gets there, she sees a man across from her, and she knows that's no longer even possible. That gold and all of her dreams are now just a pipe dream. It's gone. So they created this scholarship fund to try to help, women like this and girls who have to forego prize money or scholarships Hold on a second, and I'll tell you what the website is because we talked about it over there. It's xx-xyathletics.com. xx-xyathletics.com. You should take a look and consider it. And I just wanted to bring you one other thing, on the subject of the pronouns. I know I sound like a broken record, but once I saw this light, it became important to me to show it to everybody else. I really want you to know, please just Google the article, Pronouns Are Rohypnol. Now you can find it on the internet. It was banned at first, as I said. But here's what the news media is doing, and anybody else who decides to go with the fake pronouns. You're not being kind. You're not being supportive. You're being harmful to women. You're making things like that boxing match possible. You participate in a way in getting Angela Carini hurt and ruining her Olympic dream. So this is in part what they say. And Rohypnol is like the date rape drug where it just dulls your senses. You don't realize what's happening to you. You'll find, they say, if you force yourself to do this, use the wrong pronouns for a man, that you have to consciously fight the conflict of input to your brain each and every time. And it leaves you confused, distracted, slower, frustrated, and fatigued. Forcing our brains to ignore the evidence of our eyes, to ignore a conflict between what we see and know to be true and what we are expected to say affects us. Using preferred pronouns does the same. It alters your attention, your speed of processing, your automaticity. You may find it makes you anxious. You pay less heed to what you want to say and more to what is expected of you. That's true. You're thinking, what is it? She, her, but it's a man. I'm not supposed to say he, him. I could get a strike on YouTube. I could get fired from my job. That's crazy. It slows you down. It confuses you. It makes you less reactive. This is not a good thing. And it goes on to talk about how even hearing somebody read or use preferred pronouns is damaging to you and gives you various experiments to bring the confusion of it home. It's meant to confuse you and dull your senses to where you've lost the argument before it's even begun. I beg you to stop doing it. Don't do it in your private life. Don't do it in your professional life. Lean on your news media, write letters, go on the comments section and say respectfully but forcefully that this is extremely damaging to women and young girls. We cannot win the argument if we cede the control over the language around it. It's a teaspoon in the ocean, but it's an important one. Thank you all for tuning in. Please have a good weekend. We'll be back on Monday. We'll see you then.